Week 4 of VCT Americas is about to start. If you're not up to date, this video is for you, as we will be covering all of last week's games. Now, last week's VCT Americas began with the news that we'd be in the studio and not on the stage in the Riot Games arena, as the LCS required it for their games, despite the fact that they didn't have a crowd, which makes literally zero sense. But what can you do? League of Legends will always be Riot's favorite child. Now, before we get started, please like and subscribe so I can get monetization, please. Blink and you missed it. This next match was such a stomp. It got the title of fastest game in America's history. Envy versus Lev. I never would have thought a team with Kesnit and Demon 1 would get so heavily out-aimed. Lev's lightning fast set strats came in with an unstoppable force that Envy just couldn't stand up to. Envy's players love to rely on their aim, and they just got diffed, which, combined with the fact that their set strats and defensive protocols aren't very well developed, and their comps were a bit of a mess, they were just destroyed. In fact, if you did have time to listen to Plat Chat, Coach Zix said something really insightful. He sees Envy players as working really well as a 5 or on their own, and there is no in between.
Envy is like extremely shaky. It feels like pretty much only it's like they only work well as like individuals or as 5. There's like no in between. Like all of their round wins are like either one person makes a crazy hero play or all 5 of them are together and they've hard flood. But it's like any interaction you see between like 2 people just looks so awkward.
That said, as normal, Envy's not a team where anything can just be simple. No. After the match, Poppin was arguing with people on VLR, something that I would not advise any player to do. In fact, I would not recommend you read VLR comments if you are a pro player, let alone try and fight back, as this guy gloated about the fact afterwards that he had gotten to Poppin like he did FNS. On top of that, I have seen endless clips of Inspire and Tarek reacting to the problems in Envy's protocols on their co-stream together. One in particular is them secretly typing and agreeing about who they would kick from the team to put Inspire back on, a name most of us will feel like we can guess. As for the maps themselves, the comps didn't seem to make sense for Envy's roles especially, and there's nothing really to talk about when they ended 13-4 and 13-4. But it's safe to say that Envy don't watch enough EMEA if they thought their version of Veto was going to work like that on Fracture. Also, I'd question the decision not to play Phoenix on Bind, as surely putting Egster on Phoenix, Poppin on Fade, and Rossi on Brimstone, forgoing the Viper, would just be a better comp for them. But who knows? If you can say anything about Envy, is they are at least interesting to watch. On top of that, Envy are unlikely to make playoffs, as they are yet to play either G2 or MRBR, 2 of the strongest teams in their group. As for Lev, this week's game against MRBR is teed up to be one of, if not the best game of the stage, as long as MRBR bounce back, that is. G2 versus Loud was next. Despite Luxo's best efforts, Loud are denied a win, yet again, against a top team. This is despite them winning all 4 pistols and even a bonus on each map, meaning they were up 5 rounds before you even start counting the gun round. And whilst we do have to remember that they are not playing with their full roster and instead have a substitute, if they cannot win against a top team with those conditions, when will they? That said, with Luxo and Darker popping off as they have been, I wouldn't be surprised if in Stage 2, with their full roster, they joined the LATAM domination of Americas. As for G2, I'm excited to see them bring back their Neon Chamber Phoenix comp that they showed in Santiago on Haven, something that Loud were not only unable to deal with on defense, but also struggled with on their attack, with Loud's attacking half ending 6-6. In this game, G2 look probably the strongest they have all stage. In fact, if they hadn't lost all the pistols and 2 bonuses, this game would have been a complete stomp, perhaps even comparable to Lev versus Envy. Speaking of envy, they are G2's next opponent, and with how they played last week, G2 are in for an easy time, and I would be shocked if they lost. As for Loud, they are against Cloud9, who, despite their first week, did actually play quite well last week, yet they still have some issues which we will discuss later that might hamper their performance. That said, I would still favour them over Loud, given what has been shown so far. Crew versus Furia, two titans of LATAM orgs against each other. Going into this game, I had many expectations. Expectations of 3 maps, of close competitiveness, and the opening of this game was insane. It was a 13-4 stomp by Crew against Furia. Furia were dominated so thoroughly. Their coach at the end of the map said there was nothing we could do. They just played a perfect map.
To make on server, and it is time to reset, forget this last map, because I don't think we have any chance to win this last map. Crew play very well, and it's a time to reset and focus on this Haven, because we have good strategies in this map and we have some surprise.
Before this week, everyone was saying how Crew looked to be one of, if not the strongest team in Americas. And it was this week where we really saw that come into fruition. As previously, they had only played a Sentinels with a sub and an NRG who looked to be off. Yet it was against Furia this week that Crew proved themselves to be the strongest team in the region. In fact, this team looks to be one of the strongest in the world. Now enough with the glaze, let's talk about the map. As Furia's coach said, Crew's Lotus looked unstoppable, with Crew's defense only letting Furia win 2 rounds. Their unfavored side. It would be nice to lie and say that some rounds were close, others were not, but to be truthful, it was not close at all. If you look at the stats, there were 0 clutches at all on that map, meaning that all rounds were won with more than 1 Crew player left alive. And if that wasn't enough, on round 16, after Furia had started to look like they might come back a little bit, Sadak himself, the captain of Crew, got a 4K to stop them in their tracks. Sadak, who despite IGLing for them, is the highest rated player in Americas. As for Haven, while it was competitive, it was a little odd, as unlike most Haven games, it was dominated by defensive rounds, with both teams winning more defensive than attacking rounds, something that is unusual for a map with 3 bomb sites. And while it looked like Fury were favoured after the first half, they couldn't win more than 3 attacking rounds before Crew closed it out, one of which was even the bonus, where they had gun advantage. Crew have immaculate defensive protocols and immaculate micro protocols. They know how to play off each other mechanically better than any other team in the world right now, with perhaps the exception of Paper X. As for Furia, I wouldn't worry too much about them, as their fight on map 2 proved that their mental is still strong, something that will be further tested in their match this week against Sentinels. A match I'm very much looking forward to, as I think it will be a good benchmark for both teams. As for Crew, because they face 100 Thieves this week and EG next week, it is most likely that they will go 5-0 and end the stage top of their group, going into playoffs with the bye. 100 Thieves versus NRG, a game that was vital for both teams' playoffs chances, especially for 100 Thieves, who are yet to play the strongest 2 contenders in their group, who, now after losing to NRG, will likely miss out on playoffs. That said, that's not too surprising, as Cryo only played Chamber on 1 of their maps, being relegated to support on the remaining. And when you think 100 Thieves, you think Cryo, as his aim and star power has etched itself into our memories in games past. In fact, the 1 map they won in this series was off the back of Cryo playing Chamber, a role that enables him to carry as he plays well with the op and can just focus on aiming rather than supporting his team. As for NRG, after a rough start to the first map on Pearl, they pulled it back with a dominant attack side on Lotus, and then completely destroyed on Breeze, winning the decider map 13-2 after going A 10 rounds on attack side, with the surprise on that map being that Kiko was playing the Jet and Mada was playing the Duelist. And yet, despite the role swap, it didn't look uncomfortable at all, with Mada's Harbor looking better than Bang and Kiko fried on the Jet. In fact, he fried the entire day, with him taking the top spot for NRG on Lotus as well. Finally, NRG seemed to have unlocked Kiko's star power from last year, and hopefully he can stay in this form for NRG's playoffs run. As mentioned earlier, 100 Thieves are yet to play either Crew or Furia, and will likely lose both matches, especially if they stay in their current form. Crew especially look unstoppable, which is their match for this week, and I expect it to be a stomp. As for NRG, they have an easier but not trivial match against EG this week. The next game was Sen versus EG, and this was a comfortable 2-0 victory for Sentinels, something that, if you know the records of these teams, wouldn't surprise you that much. On map 1, Redux played his best game of his rookie year so far, taking over to allow Sentinels to win 13-7, getting 3 3K multi-kills. In fact, throughout the game, he showed a really good awareness of when to take aggressive fights, especially in man-down situations where taking the risk is necessary if you are going to win the round. I also thought Sentinel's take on Bind was really interesting, as they are the only team running the Harbor Viper, as not even G2 have started running that yet. And to be honest, even though I'm often a Harbor doubter, this didn't look that bad, with them showing some very interesting ideas. It is just the question of whether or not it is better than the Brim. And whilst I don't think it quite is, I still think it is very viable with the way that they showed it. As for EG, their Haven didn't look convincing at all, as despite ending their defense half at 7-5, they were then only able to get 2 rounds on attack before Sentinels closed it out at 13-7. As whilst their attack side was good against Furia with the anti-strat they had, it was also very transparent and readable, something that Sentinels took full advantage of. As for Bind, Okayanos looked so good on the Waylay, something that I couldn't say about him on Pearl last week. It's evident that he's practiced a lot, and he has gotten a lot better. In fact, hero plays from him and Digizine were likely the only reason it was 13-11 in the first place, as they both had 4Ks on gun rounds. Overall, EG looks somewhat similar to Pacific in EMEA, as in they can get a map, maybe, perhaps 1 game win, but I doubt they'll make playoffs despite their improvements, especially as their next matches are against NRG and Crew, 2 of the better teams in their group. As for Sentinels, they're back. They look like they're going to make playoffs. In fact, I'm excited for their game this week against Furia, as it seems to be a close match, something that I couldn't have said 2 weeks ago, meaning I can safely say that surprisingly, the roster overhaul was worth it, as that earlier team was definitely not making playoffs. The last and most surprising match of the week was MIBR versus C9, a match that, if you'd asked 100 people beforehand the outcome, 98 of them would have said MIBR will stomp them. The last 2 would be C9 supporters and believers who delusionally cried out that C9 would win. Unfortunately for MIBR fans, and perhaps the rest of us, those 2 C9 supporters would have been correct, as somehow this team that looked so bad just the week before managed to look good this week, with them finally indexing into double duelist comps that suit the meta and their team. Instead of forcing Penny to play Viper, they put him on his primary role of duelist. That said, it's not all sunshine and rainbows for this team, as in true C9 fashion, they have managed to mess it up in the downtime, with leaks and reports on Twitter claiming that Penny is going to be dropped for a tier 2 player named Zach, a player whose roles and agents line up perfectly with Zeppa's, and you would think that they would drop Zeppa for him instead, keeping Penny and indexing further into double duelist. But no, Nepo9 strikes again, and nepotism will once again keep this team from their international hopes. As much as they can be annoying, I can't help feel bad for C9 fans. As for MIBR, they looked pretty bad. In fact, it's not just me saying that, but rather their coach admitted it after the first map.
You kind of focus on that just to make sure that we kind of not start anew, but create like a really good game plan going forward. And you know, they're the other team, like they're playing really good right now. We're playing a little sloppy, so as long as we pick that up, I think we'll be fine.
As for what specifically looked bad, it was the cooling and the defensive protocols, as one round on Breeze had C9 walking up mid and straight in to the B site as no one was watching that angle. Something that honestly should never happen in a pro game. Furthermore, despite C9 often running A on attack side of Breeze, MIBR tended to stack B, meaning they were often playing for retake, often already at a disadvantage. As for Split, they tended to play their defense too passively, and their mid-rounding did not look comfortable or good on attack side. That said, I would expect MIBR to bounce back and play well this week, even against Lev. C9, however, have a rough go of it for playoffs, as unless they want to start in the lowers, they need to win both their next matches. And whilst this week's one against Loud is fine, next week's against G2 will be a struggle. They can only hope that their roster drama doesn't affect their performance. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, and like the video if you enjoyed.